What's greater, the event itself or the preparation for the event? Sometimes an event can go by in a flash, and the preparation can be very lengthy. Yet, the whole point of the preparation is for the event itself, for the thing itself that's going to happen. So, the event is coming. What's the event? Rosh Hashanah, a new year. And we're now in the throes of the preparation. Month of Elul, the king is in the field. And there's a great truth to that. But there's a greater truth, a deeper truth, is that the experience itself is not the end. What's important is the means. Why? Because we're the means to that experience. And we're more important than the experience. Which means that when you're going out with your spouse, more important is than the experience is that you're with your spouse. That's more important. There's the means, there's the end. Most people, it's about, the experience. Going out to the restaurant, going out to the, whatever other experience you might be having. That's not the important thing. So what the means and what the end is, sometimes we get confused. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. And we share today with Rabbi in Morocco, Diana in Mexico, Amy in Colorado, Liba and Davida in New York, John is in North Carolina. Oh, we have Batya. Welcome back, Batya. In Montreal. I don't know what's the clubhouse over here. I'm on it, but okay. Who else? We have Clem in Brisbane, June in Australia, likewise. Cindy in Florida. Carmen is joining us in Texas. TJ also in Australia. Yan in Playa del Carmen in Mexico. Daphne in South Carolina. Mordechai in New England. Eugenia in Calgary. Paula in Bakersfield, California. Simcha in Florida. Stan is in London, England. Roxy in New Jersey. Who else do we have here? Gregory in Sydney, Australia. Oh, we got another Australian. We got a lot of Australians here today, as we do all the time. The sun shines on them first. Obviously, the sun, the light of Tanya is shining on them very strongly. That's quite obvious. Did I miss anybody? Okay, we've got Vilma, we've got Alice in Baltimore, Coy in Peru, Yiddish Amedala, Jennifer in Minnesota, into Televenta, Rachel in South Carolina, Michael in Germany, Johan in California, Sandy in Michigan, Sherry's in Israel, Vincent in Alberta. Beautiful. What is the role of the mind, of Chabad, Chochmah Bina V'das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, in the divine realm of things, in the divine order, in the divine godly soul? We spoke about emotions till now. And the emotions of the divine soul are totally related to divine connection. And the reason is that the nature of the divine soul is just connection, is to be absorbed in its source. Now, of course, that divine soul is in our body, together with an animal soul, with a human soul, the nefesh hamaskelis, the intellectual soul. And each one has its unique expression, its unique purpose and desire, what it wants. The animal soul just wants self-directed pleasure, and whatever that pleasure can be. Physical pleasure can be it, emotional pleasure can be spiritual pleasure, even. The intellectual soul wants what's good for, not what's just merely pleasurable, because that might not be good for a person, but wants what's good for the person. The divine soul doesn't want what's good. It wants what's godly. It wants what is godly. And why does it want it? Just because. That's its nature. That's its nature. So how does that relate to the Chabad, the intelligence of the divine soul? Well, we begin with Chokhmah. It's the source of intellect, which apprehends God and God's wisdom, His greatness, His holy attributes, how He conducts the world, right? So Chokhmah is the source of that intellect, of that understanding. But the understanding actually and the apprehension takes place in Bina. Bina is where we have the length, breadth, and depth of understanding of the divine. So length, right, means that you can bring down and draw down in your understanding a lofty abstract idea and bring it down and concretize it. Because godliness, of course, is abstract. You have to be able to bring it down. And then you have to bring it across also and see the breadth of this understanding about God and how it touches so many different ways. And then you have the depth of it. And Bina, by the way, is the letter Hey, which is cross, down. And then the third leg, the depth. Meaning that to apprehend, comprehend the divine, it's limitless, the depth of profundity, and how wide across and down, to bring it down and to make it meaningful, that it talks to me, that it can't just be an abstract idea, godliness, because in its nature, of course, it's abstract. And also Bina is the capability of deducing one thing out of another. Meaning seeing distinction between one point and another point. Now, with that Chokhmah and Bina coming together, that begets offspring. That's what intelligence does. It bears a child. What's that child? An emotion. What's the emotion towards God? Love and awe of God. That's what it is. That it gives birth when you understand. And the more you understand, the more it will bring a love and awe for God. Born out of that thought, meditation, contemplation. Right. Now, what does that mean, love and awe? So we've been discussing it. That when you contemplate the greatness of God, in such a way that the divine soul contemplating is overwhelmed by a sense of presence of God. That God's real. He's real in the reality of my life. In other words, not distant. That's the lower level of Yira Tata, the lower level of fear of presence, which gives reverence and a sense of awe. This is the aspect of Malchus. And then there's a higher level of awe, and that is that it's not a sense of presence, but a sense of awesomeness. God's not just merely present in our day-to-day lives, which is of course the truth, but the higher level is that he's transcendent, and we sense that transcendence. Metaphorically, like when you stand before a great person, like a king of yore, or what a king is to us, the Rebbe. It's a king. Moses was a king, right? So Moses of the generation. When I stood before the Rebbe, ooh, you felt the awesomeness of the moment in such a way that you are bashful, feeling not insignificance because you don't matter, but you're not feeling your greatness. You're feeling the greatness of what you're standing before you, that it transcends you. So we can think about God and the way he transcends the world. We can think about him the way he is found within every aspect of our lives. And that's lower level because that's a presence of God. And then the way he transcends in that he is beyond. And then there's another way to meditate about God and his greatness. That contemplation will bring you to what's called avarabba, a great love. That's a higher form of love. What's great about it? Because it's delighting in God. Why are you delighting in him? Not because he did something, because he is something. He's the ultimate. Imagine having an awareness of that, and you delight. That's a very high level of love. Though there's a lower level of love that's called avazuta, a lesser level. It's appreciating everything of God in his presence that brings you to an awe in his presence, but it also brings you to the flip side is love. That it brings you to love. What's the difference between fear and love? Between awe and love? Awe, you feel, it's like the breath in, breathe in, you're removed. There's a distance created. There's a space. That's why that's called respect. That's called reverence. It's called fear of the presence. Awe of the presence. Then there is love. Love is embrace, bond, connection. They're the flip side of the same idea. And of course, as we learned the first part of Tanya, we need both things. And here the Alter Rebbe is explaining how, through our contemplation in our minds, through Chachma Bina, we come to these two levels of fear of presence / reverence / awe, and the two levels of love, the magnanimous great love that's delighting in God, and then a lesser love, which is that through appreciation of God in our lives, in the world, that brings us to a bond, to a connection. Now, how is this all developed? We said it through intelligence, But through the intelligence, the effective part of the intelligence is what we call das. That the intelligence is Chachma and Bina is funneled through das, because das is the bond between the mind and the heart, like the front lobe. The right side of the brain is Chachma, the left side of the brain is Bina, and now you need to bind them together with the frontal lobe that will bring into the emotions. And as long as das is involved, in other words, the connection is from the understanding that we have of the mind, that it connects it to the emotions, then the emotion will be present. The moment the awareness is taken away, that emotion will be withdrawn. It goes back on the back burner. It's there in potential, but it's not being felt there in the moment because the awareness isn't there, or the das isn't there. As das is about connection, because as the phrase is, Adam knew Eve, means they had relations. They had relations. Because relations is a bond. Das is about a bond between my intelligence to bring it to my emotions, to connect them. And therefore, just like in relations, the bond, the physical sense of the bond is there in the act of coition, right? Likewise, the bond, the emotion that has been given birth to through one's intelligence is there as long as there's that awareness, that meditation, that contemplation. Otherwise, the emotion goes back into potential. Not that it's lost, but it's, right? Just like, on a simple level, you love your child. But if you're not thinking about your child, then that emotional feeling of, something's going to happen if I don't do this for my child, fear, or love, feeling a bond. When is that revealed? Well, when you're thinking about the child. Now, do you have that bond and that fear that some harm might come to them if you're not thinking about them? Absolutely, but it's only in potential. It's not being felt in the moment because you're not thinking about it in the moment, right? So that's the bonding that takes place with das, is sort of the bridge between the intelligence and the emotions. Then that's the lower level of das, of knowledge. There's das elyon, just a superior form. It's not bridging the mind, the Chabad, again, primarily through das, to the emotions, but it's actually about bridging Chachma and Bina together. It's about bringing the connection between Chachma, which is a flash of lightning that flashes in one's mind, the seed of an awareness of something, and Bina, which is the process, right? The breadth, the length, and the depth of the godly idea. So what is this bridge doing, of das, this higher level of bonding, of connection, that's in the intelligence itself? It means, usually what happens in order to give birth to any kind of feeling of godliness, is our point of understanding here, there's a process that takes place, right? You have to contemplate, you have to meditate, you have to think, and then it takes some time to process it and bring it into the emotions that you could feel it. It becomes real, it becomes visceral, and that's the normal way. The higher level of das is that which Chachma gets in a flash is just drawn down as a reality immediately. I don't know if we experience this too much or at all. It's like, I remember once by a Purim Fabringen said a lot of l'chaim. And then he said a story of the Tzemach Tzedek, and he also once said a lot of l'chaim, I think also in Purim. And then he once went with his hand like this and had a brief thought that ever went like this. And the entire effect of the alcohol was evaporated. In other words, there was no process there. Usually it'd be a process, but he had a sense of feeling of the awesomeness of God that was instantaneous, just going like that, affected immediately. Just like if someone's drunk and, I don't know, a lion's coming after them, a dog's coming after them, whatever, they're fearful. The drunkenness is, right, as long as it's not like completely that you are completely unaware, but you evaporates. So here, that everyone by the Fabringen evaporated. He went into a very lengthy, discourse after that. In any case, the point being is that the higher level of das is that there's the instantaneous awareness that Chokhmah has is bound up with the process of Bina, and it kind of does away with the process, if you will, and it becomes a reality instantaneously. As opposed to the lower level of Das is where there's a great process involved. As we see ourselves, as we ever meditate or contemplate anything that's abstract, and especially something that's godly, it takes time. Don't even go there. How often does it happen that something that you did and someone had to explain it to you, maybe more than once, till you process the idea, oh, I get it now. Right? And from that getting it, and you develop an emotion as a result. It gives birth to an emotion. So this higher level is beyond that. Now we conclude the 15th letter. So what we have learned in this letter is the different qualities of our soul, both from the animating soul, the nefesh hamaskelis, the intelligent soul, which is not godly. It's good. There's goodness there, but it's not God-directed. It's self-directed for my goodness, for what's good for me, right? Not just what is comfortable for me, what is pleasurable for me. That's the animal soul talking. What's good for me. So we understood the human emotions on that level, and the metaphor we gave for that is, as a parent teaches a child, a teacher teaches a student, and how that process develops on the emotional level, plus intellectually. And the last couple of classes we've been developing the godly soul and its emotions, and now today its intelligence. And all of this ultimately gives us a little insight into God on how He deals with the world. Because from my own workings of the soul within the body, I can get from there an understanding of the soul of God, as it were, or the attributes of God, like the 10 divine attributes, the 3 intellectual of Chabad, and then the 6 emotional, and then Malchus, of the workings of the Creator within creation. And the more I understand me, the more I'll understand God within creation, and to appreciate the true presence of God, not just in a biological, physiological, the physics of the universe in the physical way, but in the spiritual physics of the universe. And that will bring me, as we said, to the 4 dimensions here, ultimately, but of 2 levels of fear of presence / reverence / awe, and then the lower level of love and the higher level of delighting in God. through our understanding of us, we get to know him, because we have a piece of him in us that we get to know. All right. Any questions? Any comments? When Mashiach comes and Hashem circumcises our hearts until we automatically feel the higher level of awe and love. Yes, Davida, correct. Mashiach comes. Right now we got a job to do. Everything we're learning in Tanya, try to live with an aspect of it every day that we learn. Wow. Boy, would we be fast developers. Emotionally, intellectually, we'd be developed very quickly. Mashiach comes, so a lot of that what's going to take place in a much more speedy process, elevated process. This higher level of Das that we're speaking about, Das Elyon, absolutely will be. Before Mashiach comes, yeah, even now, by learning Chassidus and doing our Avodah, we absolutely. Cherries in Israel. Are the tefillin placed purposefully by locations of the mind, body, heart, and soul? The seat of the mind, and in the middle specifically, which is Das, right? And then against on the arm to the heart, pointed towards the heart, in order to bring as the message over here that the mind should bring and give birth to feelings in the heart. Absolutely. John, are the spheres vessels or lights, or perhaps both? They're both. Spheres, divine attributes. Just like I'm a body with a soul, and the truth is everything has a body and a soul to it. Or in Kabbalistic literature, it wouldn't be called a body and a soul. It would be called light and vessel. So this is the vessel, and what it contains is the light. The light, just like me, I have a body, and it contains in it a soul. So the inner dimension is the soul, and the outer dimension is the body, right? Being that we're physical people, so we get carried away with the body, but we have to know that, yes, it is very special, but at the same time recognize that it is the temple of the soul. A reminder, today, 4:30, there will be TRC, Tanya Rabbi Community. Anybody interested, please reach out to me. Mordechai, how do we know which spheres is something you should work on? Very good question. So spheres are the spheres above. In us, it's called powers of the soul. So we're going to see that we are more naturally inclined to be one over the other. Either we're more from the right side or the left side. We're more Chachma and Chesed and Netzach, right? And in them, we might be one more than the other. And, or from the left side, Bina, Gvura, and Hod. And ultimately, whatever we are, we've got to work on to develop it appropriately. But at the same time, as we learned actually in the previous letter, is that given our nature, we don't live with what our nature is. We have to now transform that. So if I am naturally, more a giving person, I also will have challenges in making boundaries. And therefore I need to know that that's also part of my divine service, in the proper boundaries that I make. Very good question. Thank you, John. Okay. Actually, I have to get off right now. My apologies. I can't continue. We have Rambam now, and we will have again TRC at 4:30 today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing day. Thank you for joining.